Hello to all the debt warriors listening, and welcome back to another episode of Millennial Debt Domination. I'm your host, Katie Fata. Have you considered investing some of your income in stocks or even your 401k? Well, if you're looking to invest your money, this episode will be perfect for you. I'm going to be tackling investing for beginners. Many millennials and Gen Zers are not investing, and this can be because they might not be educated on the topic. This episode will go over all your basic investing questions. I'll be joined today by Winnie Sun. Winnie is the founder of Sun Group Wealth Partners. She's also a part of the CNBC Digital Financial Advisor Council, and she's the host of Level Up with Winnie Sun. Winnie has a wealth of knowledge on all things investing, finances, and money, and provides the information you need to start investing today. She's also the host of a weekly Twitter chat every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific and 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. To join the chat, search hashtag Winnie Sun and make sure to incorporate the hashtag in your responses. Before we get to the interview with Winnie, I just wanted to let everyone know I'm preparing for an upcoming episode of the podcast, Ask Me Anything. You can tweet me or email me your money questions. I'll put all of the information for that in the description of the podcast. Okay, now let's get to my chat with Winnie Sun. Hi, Winnie. Thanks for being on the podcast today. I'm excited that you're here.
I am so excited to be speaking to you.
I know, right? So I'm excited that you're here for this episode because it's going to be all about investing. So I thought to start, could you kind of let listeners know what exactly investing is if they don't know?
Sure. So for those of you who are first time to investing is simply making a decision that it's time for you to make a difference in your financial future by participating in the financial markets, meaning that you're going to start to invest in companies together with companies, because companies which issue stock for you to invest in a stock which makes up different investments within a mutual fund. It's really saying, you know what, I have decided that I want to participate and invest in your future, and we're going to do this together. So the companies that you invest in, those become sort of like your silent partners in some ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. And there are different types of investing. So what are some different types of investing, and can you explain the different types?
So there are lots of different types of ways of investing. So I'll share with you some of the most popular ways of investing. So for example, when you first have money set aside, maybe from income or maybe from a gift, and you're like, I'm going to start making sure that this money works harder for me because I'm working really hard. And that might come in a form of investing in a savings account or a checking account. I would consider that investing too, because it's making a difference in your financial life. And then taking it to the next level, you're saying, well, then, now that I have this set aside, maybe what's that next level? It could be a mutual fund. And a mutual fund is simply a pool of different types of investments or stocks or bonds. And the best way I can explain a mutual fund to you is a shopping mall. So when you go to an individual store, that would be like going to one stock, right? You purchase at that one store. But going to a shopping mall, your investments are diversified. You have the food court, you have sporting stores, you have department stores, you might have accessory stores, you have a little bit of everything. So when you're investing in a mutual fund, that's very similar, the same effect. Instead of just investing in one segment or one sector, you're investing in multiple different types of investments, different companies, and it could be different sectors as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when you explain it like that, it definitely breaks it down and makes it easier to understand. So
absolutely, yeah. So that's a really popular way to invest. You can always invest individually into stocks and bonds directly. You can also invest in something very popular now called exchange traded funds, or what the industry calls ETFs. And that's where you're investing in an index. So perhaps the Standard & Poor's index, perhaps a NASDAQ index, whatever index that may be, you're basically buying that entire spectrum of stocks or bonds within that sort of style. So if it's the S&P 500, then you would essentially be buying that index or a little bit of each of those 500 stocks.
Mhm. Yeah, I think a lot of millennials might not even know, or Gen Zers. I mean, Gen Zers are super young, but a lot of them might not know even all those different types. So I think maybe that's why millennials seem to be investing less than any other generation. So I found that 21% of millennials have invested less than $500 in their lifetime. So why do you think fewer young people are taking advantage of investing, even if it's something like a savings account? It's crazy to me that that percent of people don't even have $500 saved. So why do you think the younger generations aren't investing?
Well, it's interesting you make that note because millennials have been shown to actually save more than most generations, but they just don't invest it. So they're keeping it
Mm-hmm.
in the sidelines in a checking account or savings
Mm-hmm.
account, and they're not taking that next step. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of reasons to that, and a lot of it has to do with the way that we were brought up, right? I know when I was a kid, I didn't really know anything about investing just because it wasn't something that was shared with me because my parents didn't know anything about investing. But I think a lot of millennials have parents who have lost money in the financial markets. They've seen the downturn. And even when they were younger, when millennials were at a younger age, they remember hearing their parents talk about how scary the financial markets were, the stock
Yeah.
market and whatnot. So that has trickled to like, well, cash is safe. Savings accounts are safe, checking accounts are safe, and therefore I should keep my money there. That's not to say
Right.
that they don't want to. I think we need to, as an industry, we need to go out and share with them the wins, the successes, and also
Mm-hmm.
talking through risks and return, making sure they know both the pros and cons. And millennials are so resourceful and just a really hardworking population and very creative. So I think if we go out there and we share with them, we teach them, they're going to be amazing, amazing investors. We just got to take that next step.
Yeah, and I think once they learn about it, maybe older millennials, even who are parents, can make a difference for their children in their financial future. Maybe start investing for them, maybe that their parents didn't do for them. Maybe they can help their kids then.
Yeah, so millennials who have children are
Mhm.
definitely very interested in investing. We've seen that with
Mhm.
our own clients. They will come to us and often say, they're all, Winnie, I'm so excited. I'm going to have my first child. I'm like, oh my
Mhm.
goodness, I'm so excited for you because as a mom of three children,
Mhm.
I know having kids is like literally like Christmas every single day.
Mhm.
And I say, well,
Oh,
one of the best things you can do is to set your children up for success as well as yourself because it relieves your financial stress. And one of the best things, like you mentioned, is saving for their education. I actually
mhm.
think most parents, if they have the ability, and most do, is to start saving before they're even born. Like when you're planning, oh, the crib, and you're planning how the room's going to look, that's actually a great time to set up a college savings plan. People always think you have to wait until the child's born because you need a child's social security number. And that's actually not true
Mhm.
because you can set up a college savings plan under your name, your social security number. Then once the child is born, you can simply change the social security number on the beneficiary on the account. So there's no reason to wait. The sooner the better.
Yeah, especially for the college fund, because I think that would be the best gift ever to not have student loans or anything. So you definitely be
Absolutely.
thinking, yeah, that's a great
Right.
point. So you brought up the college saving fund. That's a good point of investing. But how much do you need to start investing, whether it be in that or any type of investing? How much do you usually need to start, or is it different for every type of investing?
Well, that's a great question. The question is like, how much do you need to start investing? And that really is quite personal. But I would say if you're even thinking about investing, you probably have enough to start investing. And the reason is because most mutual funds allow you to start investing with as little as $200, some $500. But most of the case, you can start at a pretty nominal amount, and then you can build from there. Once you put in that 200 or 500, you can add $25 at a time, once a month, once a quarter, once a year. There's plenty of flexibility. The point is to get started. If you're really just gung-ho and you want to take that first step, you should actually look into see what your options are, because I think there are thousands of different mutual funds that will take your investment at that level. And the first investment, I always say, is a great teaching tool for yourself.
Mhm.
We know that to be good at anything, we need practice. The same goes for investing. Investing, you have to start, you have to experience the pluses and the minuses along the way. And that's what actually makes you a good investor.
Right. And to start, if someone wants to start investing as a young person, as a millennial, as a Gen Zer, what is the best type of investing for those new investors?
So I remember when I was 19 years old, and I had just started my first business. I made a little bit of money, and my accountant told me to go get myself over and open up an IRA. So I do
Mhm.
believe an IRA, if you have income, is the
Mhm.
ideal first starting point. If you don't have income, that's okay. But I do think my first investment, which was a mutual fund, is actually ideal for most first-time investors, because this sort of helps with your risk. You can buy, a whole pool or shopping mall of stocks and bonds, or
Mhm.
combination of two, or one or the other, with a very nominal amount. So you're getting like that whole shopping mall experience, even though the amount that you're investing probably couldn't even buy one share of stock that you really want. So this is a great way, sort of your first step. And also it gives you idea of how you're investing. It teaches you about the financial markets. It also keeps your costs down, which is a good thing.
Yeah. So let's say someone they do invest in their IRA or a mutual fund. What's some advice that you would give to a beginner who's just starting investing?
Well, when you first start to invest, the advice I would give you is not to overthink it, and realize that this is sort of tuition money to learning how to invest. So, we always want to work so hard. The Google effect, the YouTube effect is find that ideal, that perfect investment. And, in my almost 20 years of experience, I will tell you there's pretty much no perfect investment. Every investment has its pros, its cons, but you want to find one that sort of meets your profile, your risk tolerance, your time horizon, and most importantly, have stocks or bonds that you recognize. So I always think that's a great way to invest. For example, a lot of first-time investors love to invest in technology or growth or biotech or new energy. So you just want to find a mutual fund that has that. And then you just sort of watch it and you add
Mhm.
to it when it's down, and when it's up, you hold on to it and just give it time to grow.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of research that goes into picking out which type of investing is the best for you. But like, are there any kind of apps out there that can make that research about investing easier? Or once you start investing, is there any apps that can help you manage your investments easier?
Yeah. So when you're looking for your mutual fund and you're looking for research, there's a lot of ways to research this information. I think the one source I would highly recommend is obviously to work with a professional, because I do think if you work with a professional financial advisor from the beginning, you'll make a lot less mistakes, and most importantly, you'll have a coach to kind of coach you through and teach you what's important. They'll give you a lot of financial resources. But if you want to do this on your own, there's a lot of websites that give you a lot of information. I would suggest like CNBC, where I contribute
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
Forbes, Yahoo Finance. So much great information there. And in terms of apps, one app I think everybody should have is sort of a budget tool. So this can be as simple as a Google Doc, a Google spreadsheet, or an Excel spreadsheet, or you can use Mint or a
Mhm.
number of tools like that. You can even go to My Budget Worksheet and download your free budget worksheets. Um, but that I think is critical. In terms of managing your own investments, I think what you want to do is just really find the one that can handle your first investments, because a lot of times clients will say, well, maybe we should just like test it out and use a model portfolio and not really invest. And that's okay to do if you don't have any money yet to invest. But I would say if you're ready to invest, you should actually just find a company to help you do that. Like you could do it yourself, right? There's a lot of companies that do that for yourself, or you can work with somebody on that. A lot of our clients use savingpie.com just because it's super easy, and we help them manage their money. It's completely online base. But there's a lot of others available to you that you can check out online.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned Mint because I even use Mint. It's a great budgeting app, and I think
Mm-hmm.
it's great to get your budget in line first before you start investing. That's kind of I'm not like a big investor, but I think that's some advice I would give is kind of get your budget in track first and all your finances. So what advice would you give to someone who's just starting before they start investing in maybe in stocks?
So before investing in stocks, these are the things that you should do. Like the first thing you should do is get your budget in check and figure out where your money is. So we mentioned earlier, you could go to mybudgetworksheet.com. You can download the free budget worksheet for all sorts of different budgets. You want to get a sense of where your money is coming in and where your money is going out, because that will give you an idea of how much you can invest and how long you can invest and how often you can continue to add to your investment. So that's a big thing. The second thing is to rank your financial goals. I think people don't do this enough. I always say you have to have a reason to invest, not just because I want to invest. It could be because, Winnie, I'm saving for my first home purchase. Maybe I want to pay off my car or my student loans, or maybe I want to fund that next big Hawaii vacation. Whatever it may be, you got to have a goal, because when you have a goal, that helps you set your time horizon to when you want to exit your investment. So that will help you decide on your risk. So your risk tolerance and your time horizon, those are critical. So once you have your goals, then rank them of number one being most important to me, and then down to 5 or 10, like least important to me. And that's really I would say those are my first two power steps. If you're going to do this right, those are the things you want to do. Once you do those two things, you have more clarity of how much you can risk, how much you can leave and invest long term, because you reduce your risk of investing in stocks or mutual funds or anything else when you, number one, do your research, and number two, you give it enough time so the investment has time to grow. And then thirdly, that you pick good solid investments and that you're diversified. That's key. So the shopping mall is way, way smarter a decision than starting from the beginning and just buying individual stocks, unless you've got like couple $100,000 sitting around, then yeah, buying individual stocks, in my opinion, is more prudent. But if you've got less money, you should really, really consider either doing mutual funds or ETFs from the beginning.
Yeah, you kind of want to maybe start small before you go for the big, right?
Yeah, and small doesn't mean you make less money. I think a lot of people discount. They're like, well, if I only bought this and that stock, then I would be like a millionaire today. I'm like, yeah, but you know what? Then when it doesn't go right, you know how quickly that falls. And don't forget, huge companies right now, right? Like Nike just reported layoffs, United Airlines, Boeing, huge companies that nobody would ever worry about are doing massive layoffs, and they're seeing tremendous losses in sales. This is going to impact your investment. So these are things to consider. It's much better to have a pool than to buy an individual investment right now.
Yeah, and I think you never really know what's going to happen in the future, too. So, but I think one thing you do know that's going to happen in the future is you are going to want to retire one day. So, I think how important do you think it is for millennials or Gen Zers to invest in the 401k if their employer offers one?
So that's a great question. So should they invest? So if you're a Gen Zer, right, and if you're a millennial and you have income, should you invest in the 401k? Well, I think absolutely you should, because you have income coming in, and ideally, at this stage of your life, when you're a little younger, your expenses tend to be a little bit more modest because you don't have, household yet and children yet. So this is a great time to really power blast your retirement. And the best way to do that is through your 401k. Now, there's two types of 401ks. It kind of come in two flavors, vanilla and chocolate, right? So there's the traditional 401k, which is pre-tax going in and after tax coming out. And the second one is the Roth 401k, and that's after tax going in. And when you take it out, it's tax-free. Now, for those of you who are Gen Zers and millennials, you've got a most beautiful powerhouse on your side, which is age. So if I were you, I would strongly, strongly look at the Roth 401k, because you're much better off taking the tax hit in the beginning. So let's say you contribute $2,000. You'd rather get taxed on that $2,000 then what that 2000 is going to grow to when you reach retirement age, which is, about 59 and a half or 60 plus years old. So, because for many, especially Gen Zers who are, in their 20s, we're talking like 40 plus years of growth. I'd much rather like not have to worry about taxes when I'm in my, 70s and 80s. And even now, which, I'm much older. I'm a Gen Xer, and I still continue to contribute to my Roth 401k. I pay the taxes up front. And I want to make sure that every penny in the future is all mine, and Uncle IRS doesn't have a hand in it. And don't forget this, because right now we are going through a crazy pandemic. The government is spending trillions of dollars to keep us afloat here in America. Where do you think that money is coming from, right? It's not growing on trees, which means it's going to come from taxes. So I think that taxes are going to go much higher, significantly higher in the future. So I'd much rather pay the taxes now and then, not worry about it in the future.
Yeah. So with the Roth 401k and a regular 401k, you make an initial contribution to it. So when should somebody maybe kind of increase their automatic contributions to those funds? And what percentage of your income should you strive to save?
Great question. I always say if you're thinking about contributing to the 401k, always double what you think you're able to contribute. So a lot of employees will say to me, well, Winnie, the company matches up to 5%. So I'm just going to contribute to 5%. And I'll challenge the employee and I'll say, why don't you try 10%? And they're like, that's a big number, Winnie. I said, it is, but you know what? I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised when you get the money into your checking account or banking account after the 401k money has been taken away. You probably won't notice it that much. You might notice it the first time just because we're actually talking about it, but after a while, you'll get used to it. And the most beautiful thing is that you've now doubled giving yourself money. And they say, well, then the company doesn't match at 10%. So I don't think I should do that. Well, it goes beyond what the company matches you. It doesn't really matter what they match you. We're looking to make a difference in your financial life and your retirement. The company's not going to be retiring with you on the beach somewhere. They're going to do early retirement with you one day. It's all about you. It's not about the company. So I would say contribute as much as you can. And when times are difficult, when the market starts to correct and things look really bleak, this is what I told my producers at Good Day LA. I said, you know what? It's time to back in the truck, because back in the truck to your 401k, go to 15%, go to 20%, and then you can always pull back. You can always reduce that amount when things are better. Like right now, the markets are better. So you can reduce that amount, or even better, if you've already maxed out your 401k, then come November, December, around the holidays and, Christmas, Hanukkah, gifts and whatnot, then pull back and contribute less to your 401k so you have more money in your checking account. So it's a win-win. This is really smart way to sort of maximize your retirement savings. The goal here, my friends, is to maximize your 401k contributions. I mean, even if it meant, and I know it's tough because none of us are making that much money when you're, at that age, but I remember just really backing the truck up like as much as I could and like living off brick ramen. But you do what you can do, and then later on, I promise you will be happy about it.
Yeah, and I kind of like what you said earlier about how millennials, we don't have as many expenses right now. So it is a really good time to put this money towards your 401k because you don't necessarily have to pay a mortgage, maybe, probably, or you definitely have less, you don't have a family and you have less expenses. So it is a good time now to save.
It's a great time. And also because like not only are you, I mean, the advantage is I always say this about money. I said there's two people that typically will have a lot of money and invest and do really, really well. Okay. Number one, you either just have a lot of money, right? You're just lucky. You're like a Justin Bieber. Life is great. Or number two, you've got a lot of time ahead of you, right? I remember being 19 years old. I mean, I there were days like not far from being 19 where I didn't think I had money to pay for lunch for work. I didn't know if I had enough gas money to get to work. It wasn't that far from that point when I was 19. But I remember at 19, I said, now that I have a little bit of money, I'm going to do what I need to do. And I will tell you, because of doing it early on. You don't need to invest as much when you're younger, but it equates to someone in their 20s, 30s, and 40s and 50s. It's like so much money because you started young. So take the power of youth. And like we talked about, millennials are amazing savers, which means I'm going to guess that a lot of you actually have money in your checking savings account that you could move to investments.
Yeah, no, there definitely is. And yeah, and I definitely think a lot of people don't like a lot of people, millennials maybe don't even think about the investing in the 401k are, even investing in their future like that because maybe their employer doesn't even offer a 401k. So we kind of talked about the Roth 401k, but what if are there other options for millennials and Gen Zers to invest in their financial future rather than the 401k options?
Right. So if I think the key thing is whether or not you have income. Now, if you don't have income coming in, then you can't contribute into a 401k and maybe not even in an IRA. I mean, also an IRA as well. Now, if you have income, but you're not working at a big company, let's say you're working at a smaller company or whatnot, but you still have income, then I would suggest you looking at the IRA, the Roth IRA. And the reason that is because it has the same tax benefits as the Roth 401k, but it can also serve as a really powerful savings tool because, I always think of the Roth IRA as sort of the golden egg, if you will, because you get to contribute a certain amount each year and it grows 100% tax free if you leave it there for retirement. But the great thing is it also serves as an emergency fund. So that which you put in that's fully vested, right? That your contribution, let's say you stick in 2000 and it grows to like 5,000. The 2000 that you put in, you can take out at any time with no penalties and no taxes. It's just that $3,000 worth of growth that you got to leave in there until 59 and a half and beyond so that you got that special tax treatment. So that's great. So in case of an emergency, in case you really need money, you can break glass, you can grab your 2000 and you're okay. So this can serve as a dual purpose account. It can serve as saving for retirement because more than likely you're not going to need the money. But just in case you need the money, you can take out what you contributed. Also, there's benefits to first-time home buyers. So if you have a Roth IRA, you're buying your first home, there's some benefits there. So that's if you have income. I would strongly suggest a Roth IRA. I think it's an amazing account. But if you don't, then you can certainly set up a brokerage account. It'll be fully taxable, but in a brokerage account, you can start it as whatever amount that you want. You can put mutual funds in it. You can put ETFs in it. You can put stocks and bonds, CDs, whatever you want. So, lots of flexibility there too.
Yeah, we're definitely in support of the emergency fund at Navicore. I feel like I'm always talking about it, but it's so important.
Yeah, well, you're right. And I'm glad you keep talking about it because more people need to hear you talk about it. An emergency fund, we should be seeing that all over the rainbows.
Yeah, you never know. I think we've learned that you never know what could happen. It's crazy. But
Exactly.
yeah. So do you think is it ever too late to start investing in your retirement? I mean, let's say you haven't done any investing in your retirement. Is it ever too late?
Is it ever too late to invest for retirement?
Yeah.
Absolutely no. It is
Okay.
never too late. In fact, it's interesting because if you talk to a senior citizen in their 70s and 80s, right? If they have Social Security money coming in that they don't need, guess what they want to do? They want to save it and they want to put it aside. So the same goes for, there's really, I have people reach out to me in their 40s and like, Winnie, I know I'm so behind. I need to catch up. I was like, it's okay. Because as long as you're ready to invest, you should invest. And what I mean by ready is, and I know you know this because we've talked about this
Mhm.
online, is you
Mhm.
got to make sure you don't have any, broken limbs. And what I mean by that is you don't want to swim with a broken arm. You don't want to swim with a broken leg. So you don't want to invest with credit card debt, right? We don't want credit card debt. We don't want high interest debt. If you have student loans, I would suggest you pay that student loans
Mhm.
off quickly first before you investing. Uh, People always get really excited about wanting to invest as soon as possible. And I always want to say this. I think it's really important to remember with money in your pocket, there's always something to invest in. So there's no sort of urgency, right? Today, maybe you want to invest in this and that and that. But, even if you have to do this 3 years from now because you've got credit card debt, there's going to be something even shinier, even cooler that you're going to want to invest in. So don't feel like that. It's more important to get yourself in a really strong, healthy state financially before you start to invest, because then you become a better investor. And not like, because otherwise when you have debt and your investment isn't doing well, I mean, consider the stress, right? Not only are you worried about your credit card debt or your student loan debt, but then you're worried about the market all of a sudden coming down. I mean, that's really scary, and you definitely don't want to be in that situation.
Oh, that's a good point to pay up that you want to bring up. The last 2 episodes, I talked about credit and how you want to make sure, you're not spending too much on your credit where it's just an absurd amount and you can't pay it off. So you definitely want to make sure all that debt is settled before you try to invest. So I think that's a good point to bring up. So I think the last thing I kind of want to ask you about is the power of compound interest and the benefit of starting young with investing in your financial future. So can you just kind of give my listeners a little insight about that?
Absolutely. So let's talk about compounded interest, one of my most favorite things ever. I'm gonna I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna teach you a little secret, which is really, really cool. So in financial advisors or financial industry, we know of something called the rule of 72T. Okay. Remember that. You're going to sound really smart when you say this. The rule of 72T goes like this. Okay. So basically, whatever investment you have, the return. So let's say, for example, let's say I'm getting 8%, right, on my investments, right? So basically, you divide 72T by your return, and that's how long it takes for you to double your money. So let's say you invested 2,000. If you're getting 8% per year, then basically in 9 years, your 2,000 will turn into 4,000. That's sort of the rule of compounded interest. But that being said, that's in its most simplistic form. The reason why like your investment does well, if you properly plan this out, you pick a nice shopping mall mutual fund, right, is because not only do you benefit from when stocks go up, but you also benefit from stocks that pay dividends. There's a lot of companies out there that issue dividends from their earnings. There's really two types of stocks or companies when we talk about investing. There's what we call value, and there's what we call growth. Value typically, and I know, Katie, you know this, but value typically are companies that pay dividends, that they're making money, it's profitable, and they pay it out in dividends. Growth companies are like a lot of tech stocks that where they're making money, they're doing really cool things, and they're profitable, but they don't pay dividends out to those who own shares of stock. Instead, they reinvest it back into the company to make the company bigger and brighter and shinier, right? And so therefore, long term, you can benefit from both. You can benefit from companies that earn dividends that also potentially have growth as well. And then you can also have those sort of power, holdings that are really focused on growth. It's good to have a sort of a benchmark of both. It's kind of like we call it the dumbbell effect for those of you who lift weights, right? So you have some growth, you have some value to offset, because in the most simplistic form, a lot of people say, well, oftentimes with the financial markets, when growth does well, value might not do as well. When growth doesn't do well, value will do well. So it kind of helps you decrease your risk by having exposure in both. Hopefully that's helpful.
No, that was great. I think that will definitely break it down for my listeners who might not even know about compound interest or anything like that. That was a great explanation.
Well, Katie, I know you know this, but it's so fun. I love talking about this stuff. I could talk to you all day long about this, but it's like investing is so fun. But I will say this, okay, remember that I told you this, because here's the thing. Money is like a bar of soap, all right? The more you touch it, the smaller it gets. And what I mean by that is, whenever you invest in an individual stock, you're paying some commissions to buy the stock, you're paying some commissions to sell the stock, or you might be paying a fee just for the overall portfolio or management, which is similarly in mutual funds. So the more often that you second guess your decision and have to make changes, then there's a higher likelihood that your soap is going to get smaller and smaller. So, Katie, you've heard me talk about this. I'm like, what? My theory is this. Then I will collect more soap. And I challenge you to collect more soap. Find
Yeah.
other ways to bring in income, find ways to invest, and then hand it over to someone who really knows how to do it. Because I will tell you, it is way less expensive and uh, way less stressful to work with someone who knows how to do this properly from the beginning. Look for a financial advisor who's going to be older than you, because you know what? You want someone who has over 10 years of experience, because anybody with less than 10 years of experience investing has only experienced a good financial market, which, you know what, a monkey could invest in a good market, to be honest with you. It's investing in the bad markets, it's that value that you need. And then you have a partner to kind of, ask questions and work with you and figure things out. So that's the way I would recommend it. Even if I wasn't in this industry, I would actually tell my kids to have an advisor. My kids are pretty young though, but they're already starting to invest. But they have moms, so
Yeah, right.
there's benefits to this.
Yeah, right. They got the best source right there. They're already set
I
up.
like to think so.
Yeah, no. Well, Winnie, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I think this was some great information for everyone, for millennials, Gen Zers, and everyone else listening.
Well, thank you, Katie. I mean, I feel like it's great because you're sort of taking that next step. We actually talk to each other. Next time we're going to see each other.
I know, right? Maybe in person one day.
That would be incredible. I would love that.
Yeah, I love talking to you. I always think you have so much great information. So thank you
Well,
again for taking time out of your day today to talk to me.
anything for you, my friend, anything. So
Uh,
thank you so much for doing this. You are
yes.
incredible. I love your show,
Thank
and I
you.
just love you. So thank you so much. If you need anything, I'm always here for you.
Thank you so much, Winnie. No, this is great. I love talking to Winnie. She's always so positive and she has such great information to share. I think that if you had any kind of questions about investing, Winnie definitely answered all of them, as well as she gave some awesome investing advice. If you're a parent with a young child, start investing in their future. You can start by investing in their college fund even before they're born. If you're a millennial or a Gen Zer looking to set up investments for yourself, start with a savings account or a mutual fund. It's okay to start small when you're first investing. If your job offers a 401k, start investing in that, especially when you're young and don't have too many other financial responsibilities. You might think you don't want to put your hard-earned income away for retirement, but you'll be grateful you did so. So once again, I want to thank Winnie Sun for taking time out of her busy schedule to be a guest on the podcast. I'll put all of Winnie's social media information in the description box below so you can follow her and let her know that you heard her on the podcast. I just want to remind everyone again to send me your questions for the Ask Katie Anything episode of Millennial Debt Domination. I'll answer all of your money related questions. So that wraps up another episode of Millennial Debt Domination. Please subscribe to our podcast wherever you're listening. And if you're listening on Apple, you can rate and review us there. I'll talk to you next time, millennials, Gen Zers, and everyone else listening. Bye.